I'm not a birthday person. No balloons, no brunch, no 35 and thriving Instagram posts. Just a quiet day at Fort Peterson, a half-decent cup of coffee, and a chance to pretend it's any other Tuesday. That was the plan. But plans are funny things. They don't mean much when your name appears on a shipping label you didn't expect. After a 6-week logistics rotation, I just returned from Okinawa tight schedules, endless manifests, and the usual supply chain headaches. My unit barely had time to breathe before more files hit our inbox. I was behind on reports, halfway through a protein bar, and unprepared for surprises. Then the package arrived. It was sitting on the front bench near the admin medium-sized. No wrapping, no card, just a plain brown box with a printed label. My name. My full name. Spelled right, which already felt suspicious. I picked it up without thinking. Light, but not empty. No rattling, no strange smells. But something about the tape too precise, too clean. Roy Mendel, my CO, walked by just as I turned it in my hands. He stopped. "Where'd you get that?" Was waiting outside logistics. Addressed to me. He stared at the shipping label like it owed him money. Then he said it. "Don't touch that. That's not a gift." I laughed, mostly because I didn't know what else to do. "It's from my family, probably birthday junk." Roy didn't smile. He leaned in and tapped the bottom corner of the label. Blue Glint Logistics. I squinted. He was right. Tiny logo, lower right. You wouldn't notice it unless you were looking for it. "You know them?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "We flagged them in a case last year. Third-party contracts, sketchy paperwork. Someone tried to slip counterfeit gear into base supplies through one of their branches. They're still being watched." I held the box away from me, just slightly. He stepped back. "If that came to you directly, with no sender name, you report it, right now. I've been in the army long enough to know when someone's not joking. Roy doesn't do drama. He's not paranoid. But that voice, that flat, calm tone, that's the one he uses when something's gone seriously sideways." So I didn't argue. I walked that box to internal security like it had just hissed at me. On the way there, though, something started to itch in my brain. Blue Glint, the box. That particular shade of cardboard. The tape was sealed diagonally on the underside. It was familiar. 2 years ago, I visited my sister's apartment. Alyssa was knee-deep in what she called her creative inventory. Boxes everywhere. She claimed she was running a boutique operation, handmade soaps, candles, whatever sounded artisanal. The place looked more like a packing center for Etsy rejects. But those boxes, they looked just like this one. Same texture, same tape. Same smell of cheap glue and lavender oil, trying too hard. I didn't say anything to Roy. Not yet. But as soon as I handed the package to security, I walked outside and called home. My mom answered on the second ring. Her voice was syrupy sweet. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Did it arrive?" It. Not your gift, not the package we sent. Just it. That was when my spine started to stiffen. If you've ever had that one phone call where your parent suddenly sounds too cheerful, too nice like they're auditioning for a Hallmark ad, you know exactly what I felt. I told her, yeah, it came. She asked if I'd opened it. I said yes. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath underwater. "Oh good. We just wanted you to know we were thinking of you. You're our rock, you know that? Our rock." My mother doesn't talk like that unless something's on fire. That's when it clicked. It wasn't just a box. This was something else. And if you've ever had a gift show up at your door with more baggage than bows, let me know in the comments. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more real stories like this one. Internal security didn't take long to flag the package. They called me in for a follow-up within the hour. One of the officers had already scanned the label. "Do you recognize this sender?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. Because technically I didn't. But I recognized the hands behind it. The style. The playbook. And that was almost worse. So I just said, "It's from my family." Which was true. Just not in the way most people mean it. I didn't go straight back to my desk. My feet moved, but my mind stayed locked on the box. I ended up outside, near the motor pool, standing next to a vending machine I didn't want anything from. I stared at the chips and protein bars rows like they had answers. There was something off, and it wasn't just the shipping label. It was how fast my mom asked if I'd opened it. How relieved she sounded when I lied and said yes. She used the word rock as if it were some kind of guilt insurance policy. My family doesn't use words like that unless they try to smooth over something sharp. I pulled out my phone and searched Blue Glint Logistics. Their site looked normal at first: stock photos of smiling warehouse workers, fake testimonials, a color scheme that tried too hard. But the contact address listed wasn't on my package. That one came from a P.O. box 2 states over. Back inside, I ran into Roy again. He was already standing outside the internal security office, arms folded. "You good?" he asked. "I don't know yet," I said. "They open it?" "Not yet. Protocol's slow when it's labeled personal." "But it's not," I said. "It's commercial. No handwriting, no gift wrap, just a direct ship with a flagged logistics company." Roy said nothing for a second, then knocked on the door. One of the officers let us in. The box was on a metal table, untouched, just sitting there like it had rights. One of the base investigators, Sergeant Levis, glanced at me. "It's your name on the label?" "Yes, first and last." "Recognize the return address?" "No," I lied. Because technically, I didn't know that specific box. But my gut was already 5 steps ahead of my mouth. Roy pointed to the Blue Glint logo. "This company's been flagged for customs bypass, shady manifests, ghost shipments. 2 months ago, we intercepted a mislabeled box routed through Kansas with a nearly identical barcode format." Levis nodded. "And this one's identical in pattern." He peeled the label carefully, scanned the code, and pulled up a database. After a few clicks, he turned the monitor toward us. The code traced back to a batch of shipments tied to a single supplier, Bloom Designs Inc. That hit like a slap. I'd seen that name before. Last year, on a fake invoice Alyssa sent me when she tried to write off some of her failed art business as a loss and needed me to hold a few pieces for tax purposes. I told her no. But apparently, she went ahead and created paperwork anyway. Bloom Designs wasn't a real business. It was a cover. Something she threw together on Canva and slapped on anything she needed to look legitimate. And now it was in the Army's logistics system. "You're telling me this shipment is tied to a company that doesn't exist?" I asked. Levis raised an eyebrow. "Exists on paper. That's enough to cause problems." "Is this enough to trigger an investigation?" Roy asked. Levis gave him a look that said, "It already has." They asked me to step out while they documented the box. Gloves, photographs, chain of custody. The whole thing felt surreal. It was just a box, but now it was evidence. I walked out, sat on the curb, and didn't even notice the Georgia heat. I pulled up my old emails and scrolled until I found it. It was the 14th of April, and the subject line was, "Little favor?" Message from Alyssa. "Hey sis, can I ship some items to your place temporarily? It's just easier. I'll pick them up when I visit. Love ya." I never responded. Never agreed. But the message was still there. I hadn't deleted it. And that silence was now a breadcrumb on a trail I didn't lay. Back then, I thought ignoring her was enough to create distance. But distance doesn't matter when someone already has what they need: your name, your address, and just enough charm to spin it. I called Jason. "She used my name," I said, before he could even say hello. He didn't ask who. He didn't have to. "Do they have proof?" "Not yet, but it's coming." "Ugh. Are you okay?" I didn't answer that. What was I supposed to say? "I'm fine?" I wasn't. Not because of the box. Because of how fast it all made sense. I hung up and went back inside. Levis had laid everything out on the table. Bubble wrap. 3 art figurines, obviously bulk produced. A fake certificate of authenticity with my name as the sender. A small envelope with a shipping slip inside, also bearing my name and an electronic signature I never gave. Roy read it first. Then passed it to me. It wasn't just a forged label. It was a complete shipment made to look like I was distributing art for resale. Under current military ethics and customs rules, it would be a violation if I failed to report it, especially if it looked like I was profiting from it while serving active duty. This was serious. Levis leaned against the counter. "Do you know who might have done this?" I looked straight at him. "My sister." There wasn't a trace of drama in my voice, just resignation. Roy stood quietly, then said, "You need to get ahead of this, Whitlow, fast." I nodded. And for the first time since I joined the army, I didn't feel like I was serving a country. I felt like I was defending myself from a family. I stayed at the office until just after 1800, pretending to catch up on reports, but I didn't get through a single page. My screen was on, but my eyes were locked on a single thought. They planned this. Not a coincidence, not a mix-up. Not a well-intended but poorly executed gift. This was set up. I finally drove home in silence. No music, no calls, just the sound of tires on pavement and the exact 3 words running through my head: "Don't touch that." Jason was already in the kitchen when I walked in, sleeves rolled up, dinner halfway done. He took one look at my face and didn't ask anything. "I made stir-fry," he said. "Wanted to keep it simple tonight." I nodded, dropped my keys, and leaned against the counter. The smell of garlic and soy filled the room, something normal, something safe. I needed that. "I called Mom," I said after a minute. She picked up on the second ring, sounded sweet. Jason raised an eyebrow. "Sweet? Sweet or manipulative? Sweet?" "The second one. Definitely the second." He handed me a bowl without a word. "She said they just wanted me to feel loved, said I'm their rock, used that exact word." Jason made a face like he'd just bit into something sour. "She's never used that word about you." "Exactly. She usually saves that kind of language for Alyssa." He sat down across from me. "Did you record it?" "Not the first one. I wasn't thinking that far ahead, but she called again later and I hit record before answering." "What'd she say?" "She asked again if I opened it." I lied again. Told her yes. She sounded relieved. Jason didn't say anything for a second, then, "They're scared." "They should be." "Odd." I pulled out my phone and replayed the audio. Her voice filled the room, sweet, sing-songy, carefully measured like she was reading off a script. "Oh, sweetheart, we just wanted to show you how much we love you. You're our girl, don't forget that." I paused it and looked at Jason. She's never said that. Not when I graduated, not when I deployed, not even after I had a miscarriage. He put down his fork. "So why now?" "Because she thinks I'm the cleanup crew. Always have been." And that's the truth they never say out loud, but always live by. Alyssa makes the mess. I make the mess disappear, and somehow, even when it explodes, I'm supposed to stay silent and smile. We ate the rest of dinner quietly. The food tasted good, but it felt wasted on that day. After, I opened my laptop and pulled up every message from Alyssa I hadn't deleted. Emails, DMs, old texts. I started building a folder. She'd never directly asked me to be part of any business, but there were enough vague references to joint ideas, shared shipments, and helping with storage. Jason leaned over my shoulder. "You think this is enough?" "Not yet," I said. "But it's a start. If they try to say I knew, I need to show a pattern." "She used your name, your address. Probably my digital signature too," I added. "Wouldn't be the first time she faked something." Jason frowned. "She still have those old tax files you emailed her?" I stopped typing. I had, years ago. Back when she needed help filing and swore she didn't understand deductions, I sent her my returns as a reference. Dumbest thing I've ever done, and I've once tried eating expired MRE cheese spread. "She probably still has all of it," I muttered. Jason's voice dropped. "Then you need to prepare like this is war." I didn't argue. The thing about Alyssa is that she's never been malicious. But she's always been willing to let someone else take the hit. It's not intentional, not calculated, it's just how she survives. She cries, people bend. Then she forgets there was even a crisis. She's not evil. She's entitled. And that makes her dangerous in a whole different way. The last message I found from her was from 6 months ago. Hey, sis, hope things are good. I might send a little something your way soon, don't freak, just an art shipment I need to move fast. All good vibes. XOXO. I had never replied. Jason read it over my shoulder. She warned you, in her own passive-aggressive way. I nodded. And then my phone buzzed. It was my dad. Jason gave me a look. You gonna answer? I stared at the screen. Let's see what he's rehearsed. I picked up and put it on speaker. Hey, kiddo, he said, fake casual. Just wanted to say happy birthday. Sorry we didn't call earlier. Sure, I said flatly. We really hope you liked the little gift. Alyssa put a lot of thought into it. There it was. He said her name. Alyssa sent it? I asked. A pause. Well, we all did. As a family. Jason shot me a look. You know, Dad continued, you've always been the strong one. We just figured I could take the hit? I cut in. Another pause. It's not like that. I hung up. Jason didn't say anything. Neither did I. Because we both knew what it was like. Jason poured us another drink, and I stared into mine like it had answers. My hand was steady, but my chest wasn't. It wasn't just the call. Everything was underneath it, the years, the patterns, the old bruises that never made skin but lived somewhere deeper. You want to talk about it? Jason asked, not pushing, just opening the door. I don't think I need to, I said. You already know who Alyssa is. Not like you do. So I told him. Alyssa is my younger sister by 3 years. Lighter, brighter, softer. She cried easily, which somehow made her the fragile one. I didn't cry. That made me a problem solver. The one who needed to hold it together while she fell apart. We weren't enemies. Not really. But we were never equals either. She was the golden child, not in the overachieving valedictorian way. More like in the let's not upset her kind of way. Every family event was built around her mood. If she was happy, we were allowed to have fun. If she was moody, everyone had to pretend not to notice. I was 8 the first time I took the fall for something I didn't do. A hideous green vase shattered in the hallway. Alyssa stood over it with her lip trembling like she'd practiced it in a mirror. Mom looked at the mess, and Alyssa pointed at me. She did it. I hadn't even been there. But Mom looked at me like I had personally ruined her day. You're the big sister, she said. You should have been watching her. I got sent to my room. Alyssa got a popsicle. That was the start of it. I had a complete resume of unpaid damage control by the time we were teenagers. She'd borrow clothes without asking, ruin them, and blame me for making her feel bad about it. She'd fail a class, and I'd get a lecture about not being a better example. College? I joined the army. Alyssa got into yoga. Essential oils. One failed Etsy store after another. When one scheme crashed, the next one was already in a cart. She's finding her path, my mom would say, like that meant we were all required to help pave it. Whenever she needed money, I'd get a text with a heart emoji and a promise to pay you back when things settle. They never settled. I stopped lending. She stopped texting. Until last year. I still remember that lunch. My mom invited me out, just us, which should have been the first red flag. We met at a bougie cafe she usually called pretentious unless she tried to prove something. Alyssa was already there. Wearing flowy linen and sipping something green, she looked like a background extra in a self-care commercial. I knew I was being set up, but I sat down anyway. We ordered, exchanged small talk, and then she dropped it. So I was wondering, she said, too casually. Would it be okay if I used your name and address for something? Just for a business account, for this little art thing I'm working on. It's not shady or anything. Just easier because I'm kind of between leases and you're, stable. That word. Stable. It always meant the same thing. Predictable, responsible, disposable. My mom jumped in immediately. It's just temporary. You're good with paperwork. It just makes sense. I didn't yell. Didn't even flinch. I just said, number. Flat. Calm. Final. Alyssa blinked like she couldn't believe it. Then smiled too quickly. Oh, okay, I just thought I'd ask. The check came. Mom insisted on splitting it, which was her passive-aggressive way of showing disappointment. Alyssa didn't hug me goodbye. And that was the start of the freeze-out. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. Just colder. A little more distance every week. The Christmas invite never showed. Dad sent an email about how families support each other with enough guilt baked in to fuel a Catholic mass. Alyssa unfollowed me on Instagram, which I overlooked until a friend pointed it out. I told myself I didn't care. But I did. Because part of me still thought setting boundaries didn't have to mean losing everything. That saying no wouldn't automatically make me the villain. I was wrong. They don't want a daughter who says no, I told Jason. They want one who keeps the peace. And peace for them means silence, he said. Exactly. And now here we were, military investigators reviewing a package that looked exactly like the ones from Alyssa's failed gallery. Her fake company's name was tied to my real address. Her hustle is tied to my career. You ever see any of her art in person? Jason asked. Yeah. A year ago. We stopped by her place to return some dishes. She was packing stuff, said it was inventory. Boxes everywhere. Said her supplier was strict and not to open anything. Strict? Huh. He didn't have to say the rest. That same supplier, Bloom Designs, was tied to the box and is currently in a military evidence locker. She used to joke that she was building a mini empire, I said. Turns out it's built on my name. Jason looked at me. Then burn it down. And I felt the match in my hand for the first time in a long time. The next morning, I showed up at Fort Peterson 30 minutes early, uniform crisp, boots polished, face blank. That box had been sitting in our kitchen for barely 24 hours, yet I felt like I'd aged 10 years since it arrived. I walked into the base security office without knocking. Roy Mendel, my commander, looked up from his desk like he'd been waiting for me. I called internal affairs, I said. They need to see it, today. He didn't argue. He just picked up the phone and dialed a number. Yeah, he said into the receiver. Lieutenant Whitlow is here. You're going to want to bring the box. An hour later, we were in a secure conference room. Cold air, colder eyes. 2 investigators in suits, 1 civilian contractor, 1 from military CID. Both were expressionless, except when they glanced at the box. Same brown packaging. Same label. Still unopened. I sat across from them, hands folded, spine straight. The civilian asked the first question. This was sent to you directly? Yes, I said. Birthday gift, allegedly. Who from? My parents. But I believe it originated from my sister's business or something she's calling a business. 1. The CID guy looked at the label, scanned it with his tablet, and made a quiet sound like he was confirming something. What do you know about this sender? He asked. I know the return address is a P.O. box 2 states away from where my family lives. I know that's the same address used by Bloom Designs, a company my sister runs, or used to. She's been vague about what they actually sell. Has she ever used your address before? Not with permission, I said. But I suspect she has. He looked at me carefully. Has she used your name? I don't have concrete proof, I replied, but I'm willing to bet she's used it to sign something. Probably more than once. The civilian contractor raised an eyebrow. So why didn't you open the box? I looked over at Roy. He nodded, letting me handle it. Because the tape, I said. The print. The exact way it was packaged, I've seen it before. My sister's apartment looked like a warehouse last year. Same tape. Same packing code. Same logo. And because my husband saw something off about it. And he was right. All right, the CID officer said. We're going to open it now. You're okay with that? Yes. They pulled out their gloves. Box cutter. Tarp. Every step was methodical, slow, like they were diffusing something. Which, in a way, they were. The blade slid across the seam. The flaps opened. I held my breath. Inside, layers of bubble wrap. Neatly packed figurines. Ceramic, maybe. Weird, abstract shapes. A certificate of authenticity. A folded invoice. The civilian pulled the paper and held it up. Name matches yours, he said. It says you're the purchaser. I didn't purchase anything, I said. I didn't even know it was coming. The CID guy scanned a barcode on the base of one piece. His tablet beeped. Then he frowned. He turned the screen so Roy could see. Roy's face shifted just slightly. What is it? I asked. These match an active investigation, CD said. Art smuggling. Stolen goods moved through a fake storefront. We've been tracking them for 6 months. Of course, they had. He looked at me again. Have you ever registered a company under your name? Number. Ever received inventory from an art supply distributor? Number. Mind if we take this with us? Please do. They rewrapped the pieces, sealed them into a marked evidence box, logged the barcode, took photos, all of it by the book. Once they were gone, Roy turned to me. You know what this means, right? I think so. Until this clears, we can't move forward on your promotion review. I didn't flinch. I figured, I said. Roy hesitated. This could get ugly. Not if I get ahead of it, I said. Not if I tell the truth before someone else twists it. He gave a single nod. Start writing everything down. Every detail. We'll back you up, but it has to be airtight. I understand. And I did. Because I wasn't just trying to protect my name. I was trying to reclaim it. I didn't go home after that. I went straight to the base legal office. If this were going to spiral, I wouldn't let it drag me down without facts. I sat down with Lieutenant Carson, the post's legal counsel, and laid it all out. No drama, just what I knew and what I suspected. He was calm, sharp, and not easily impressed. When I mentioned Bloom Designs, he raised an eyebrow. They've popped up before. Mostly red flag import records, nothing criminal yet. This. Well, looks like that changed, I said. He nodded slowly. Let's start by checking if your name has ever been officially tied to any of their filings. 20 minutes later, he pulled up a business registration document. Filed 10 months ago. Registered in Georgia, under Bloom Designs LLC. The listed address is my old apartment in Savannah. The email is attached, dana.artedman@bydesignmail.com. That's not my email, I said flatly. You recognize the handwriting on the signature? He zoomed in. The signature was almost laughable. Based on how it looked like someone had tried to imitate mine, scribbled on a thank you card once. No flow. Wrong slant. Sloppy. That's not mine, I said. Would you be willing to provide a real copy for comparison? Yes. I'll send it today. Carson leaned back. Okay. So we're dealing with possible identity theft. Possibly more. And if this business has received shipments under your name, that puts you at risk, especially with your position on base. I figured. He started a file. Requested access to my previous W-2 second, bank records tied to any business accounts, and anything that could show a pattern or, more importantly, a lack of one. I cooperated with every form, every question. I had nothing to hide. But the problem was, someone else had been hiding behind me. When I got home that evening, Jason had already cleared the counter where the box used to be. He had post-it notes with to-do lists, a notepad with a timeline, and a printed email from 2 years ago where I'd sent Alyssa a scan of my driver's license to help her get her taxes sorted. I stared at it. God, I gave her everything. She didn't steal it, you gave it to her. Like every sibling does at some point, he said. That doesn't mean you said yes to this. I sat down. The weight of everything didn't feel dramatic, it felt clinical. Just facts stacking up, quietly. She knew what she was doing, I said. Jason didn't argue. The next morning, CID called again. They'd found something else. A payment record cryptic, half-scrubbed showing that the inventory in the box had been paid for by an account tied to Dana Whitlow Holdings. I don't have holdings, I told the agent. We figured. But your name is on the wire. Oh, can I get a copy? They emailed it over. Same fake email. Same P.O. box. Same formatting Alyssa used in her Etsy bios when she was still pretending to make handmade bath salts. Jason looked over my shoulder. This is beyond shady. This is criminal. I nodded. And she did it with a smile. He didn't ask what I was going to do. I already had. I opened a new document and started typing everything I could remember. Every text, every conversation, every red flag I'd ignored for the last 5 years. I printed out screenshots, grabbed bank statements, and pulled up old emails. Every piece mattered now. Carson emailed later that day. CID had officially marked me as potentially impersonated, which meant I wasn't being investigated, but it also meant they were digging deeper. Anything else you remember about their last request? He asked. Yes, I replied. They asked me to use my address for shipping. I said no. And they did it anyway? Looks like it. He didn't respond for a while. Then, finally, you're going to need to file a formal affidavit. We'll help you write it, but this isn't going away quietly. Neither am I said. I looked at the corner of the room. At the blank space where the box had been. It felt cleaner now, like an infection had been cut out but the wound was still open. I wasn't angry yet. Just methodical. Jason was asleep when the phone rang again. I saw the caller ID and let it buzz until it stopped. I wasn't ready. But 5 minutes later, it rang again. Same number. Same name. I'd carried on my emergency contact form since basic training. Mom. I picked up, but I didn't say anything. Her voice came through, tight and breathy. You told them, didn't you? I still didn't speak. They showed up at our house. Took your father's laptop. They're asking questions about Alyssa's art about the packages. Do you have any idea what you've done? I told the truth, I said. You told them it was her. I told them the box was addressed to me. That I didn't order it. That I didn't know anything about it until it landed in my kitchen with a shipping label tied to a company I never signed for. She paused for a long moment. You could have protected her. I'm not her insurance policy, I said. She's your sister. Exactly. She got quiet, but not because she understood. I could hear her gears turning, calculating damage. Finally, she said, she's not built for this. And there it was. You are, she added, almost like it was a compliment. You've always been stronger. The words hit me harder than I expected. Not because they were untrue, but because of how casually she used them, like being strong was permission for betrayal. I'm not built to be used, I said. I'm not built to be the one who always takes the fall. You don't have children. You don't have anyone depending on you, she said, tone sharpening. You'll be fine. Alyssa, this would destroy her. I don't have children because I lost one, I snapped. Silence. She still lives in the same town, with your Christmas wreath on the front door, and parents who bail her out every time she ruins something. Don't you dare talk to me about what I can handle. You've always been the cold one, Dana. Because someone had to be. She hung up. The next day, I drove to their house. Not out of emotion. Out of necessity. When I knocked, my dad answered. His face was gray in a way that wasn't about age. We didn't expect you. No, I bet you didn't. I stepped inside. The air was heavy with lavender oil and guilt. My mom was in the kitchen. She turned and tried to smile. You must be tired. You didn't have to come all this way. I'm not staying, I said. I need answers. Dana, please, sit. No, I said. Let's keep this fast. Oh. I pulled out a manila folder and placed it on the table. Printouts of the business filings, the fake email, and the forged signature. My name was twisted and borrowed like a spare key. My father looked at it like it might bite him. I said no, I reminded them. I told you both, at that lunch, I didn't want my name on anything, and you let her do it anyway. She told us it was temporary, my mom said. She told you I agreed? She said it was just for mailing just to get a few things started. And you believed that? She said you were helping. You always help. That part was genuine. I had always helped. Paid for her groceries once, covered her rent. Saturday through meetings about her business vision, while she explained how selling overpriced figurines online would be the next Warby Parker. She cried, my dad said, like that explained everything. And you gave her my name, I said. I stood up. You made a choice. You saw a storm coming, and you decided I'd survive it better than she would. You chose who would burn. She's your sister, my mom said again, like it was a magic spell. Yeah. And I'm your daughter. Not a pawn, not a safety net, just a daughter. No one said anything. I walked toward the door. You know this could ruin her. My dad called behind me. It almost ruined me, I replied. Back at home, I handed Jason the folder. He didn't open it. You good? He asked. No, but I'm clear. He nodded. Then he did the only thing that helped. He stayed quiet. That night, I typed a complete statement for Base Legal. I included every detail, every email, every memory. I attached my real signature and made sure it was on record. Carson wrote back one line. This is going to help more than you know. I didn't feel proud or brave. I felt exhausted. But I was done giving people the benefit of the doubt while they forged documents behind me. I was done being strong in the way they meant: quiet, compliant, easy to sacrifice. They wanted someone who could handle it. Fine. I'd handle it. All of it. I woke up before sunrise, not because of any alarm, but because my body knew what was coming. The formal letter from the promotions board was supposed to arrive by the end of the week. Friday, today. It was waiting in my inbox by 5:42 a.m. Subject line, suspension of promotion review. Lieutenant Dana Whitlow. No ceremony, no apology. Just a sterile paragraph explaining that my file would be paused indefinitely pending resolution due to an ongoing investigation involving my name being tied to a fraudulent operation. I read it twice, but it didn't hit me like I thought. No gut punch, no panic. Just a confirmation of what I already knew. Jason was pouring coffee when I stepped into the kitchen. They sent it, I said. He didn't ask what it said. He didn't need to. He just handed me my mug, which was already half full. Just the way I liked it. We sat down at the table. The same table where the box had been. The space was empty now, but my mind filled it in anyway. Tape lines. Cardboard. That dry smell of packaging that never really fades. I want to trace it all the way back, I said suddenly. Jason nodded. You mean digitally? Emails, shipping records, IP addresses, anything she used. If she was logged in under my name, I want to know where from. He didn't try to talk me down. He opened his laptop, passed it across the table, and said, start here. The first place I checked was the fake email address tied to the business account. It had a profile photo now, some ridiculous stock image of a woman at a pottery wheel, blurry and overexposed. There were still cached links from the original Etsy store. Bloom Design Studio. The site was down, but the Wayback Machine had a few snapshots. Alyssa had used my name in the About Us section. Dana Whitlow, operations partner. A quote from me that I never gave. A description of how I supported the vision. It read like a job reference forged by a teenager. I screenshot everything. Then I went deeper. DNS records. IP logs. Browser footprints. One of the accounts had login activity from a coffee shop near her old apartment in Asheville. Another from a residential IP address tied to our parents' home. That one hurt. They didn't just know. They helped. I filed all of it. Every timestamp, every cross-reference. I pulled up old messages, 2 texts from Alyssa asking me for a copy of my lease once, just to help her prove address for a rental. Another time, she asked to borrow my tax documents to compare deductions. It all looked normal until it didn't. By mid-afternoon, I had enough to fill a binder. I called Lieutenant Carson and told him I wanted to come in again. You found something? He asked. More like everything. That afternoon, I sat across from him with a USB drive and printouts. I know this isn't a courtroom, I told him, but if it were, I'd already have enough to bury them. He didn't smile. It's not about burying them, it's about protecting you. Same difference at this point. He plugged in the drive. We walked through it all, piece by piece. The IP data. The forgery. The account connections. The inventory shipments, the real signature versus the fake one. Finally, he leaned back and said, "This might move it up to federal." "Good," I said. "I want them to look." "Do you want to be involved in the prosecution?" I wanted on the record that I didn't stay quiet. He nodded. "We'll submit this to SID. You'll be listed officially as the reporting party, not just the victim." That mattered to me. Not because I wanted revenge. Not the loud, vengeful kind. I wanted the correct version of my name to show up when someone typed it into a system. As I left, Carson stopped me. "One more thing. The original application for Bloom Designs LLC, it had your phone number listed as a backup contact." "That explains a few things," I said. "The system shows a confirmation code was texted to your phone when the application was filed. Did you receive anything like that?" I thought about it. Vaguely remembered a random code texted to me at 2 a.m. nearly a year ago. I had ignored it. No sender ID. No context, just 5 digits. I nodded. "Yeah, I thought it was spam." "It wasn't," he said. "It was the final step in making you complicit." And that's when it landed. They never planned to ask me. They planned for me to sleep through it. That was their version of consent silence, distraction, exhaustion. They thought if I didn't notice, I wouldn't fight. They were wrong. Walking back into the office Monday morning was like walking into a soundproof aquarium. Everyone saw me. No one said anything, but I could feel it. The weight of conversation that had already happened, the silences calibrated to stay just this side of polite. Lieutenant Blackstone was the first to break ranks. She stopped by my desk, coffee in hand, and asked, "You doing okay?" I nodded. "Fine. Just know some people are rooting for you." That told me everything I needed to know. There was already a narrative. I got through the morning running on caffeine and muscle memory. Reports, memos, briefings. My badge was still scanned, and my access hadn't changed. But the air was different. Not cold exactly, just calibrated, measured. Like the walls themselves were waiting to see how things played out. After lunch, I passed Captain Jenkins and 2 sergeants in the hallway. The conversation paused just long enough. They gave the tight, professional nod reserved for funerals and uncomfortable promotions. I kept walking. Back at my desk, I pulled up the base comm system and saw something new. An internal memo from Legal Affairs titled Non-Attribution Policy in Pending Investigations. It was boilerplate. But its presence meant someone had asked a question about me, and someone else had needed to remind them not to talk. I closed the email. My hands were steady, my stomach wasn't. When Roy Mendel, my CO, called me in at 1400, I braced for something worse. He didn't ask me to sit. He just stood there, arms crossed, jaw locked like a vault. "You've been cooperating fully?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "You believe your name is being used without authorization?" "Not just believe, I've got the proof." He looked at me long and hard, like he was trying to read footnotes behind my eyes. I had someone close to me go through something similar. Not with family, but with trust. With name misuse. His voice flattened. They didn't bounce back. I didn't flinch. "I will." He nodded once. "Good. Because if you're lying, I'm not the one you should be afraid of." He dismissed me, not coldly, just officially. I walked out of his office more certain than I'd been all week. Not because I was confident, but because I was past the point of being afraid. I wasn't just trying to save my name anymore. I was trying to save my skin in a system that doesn't forgive easily. At 1630, I stopped by the JAG office again, unannounced. Lieutenant Carson was still there. He looked up, surprised. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Define okay," I said. "I need to see how far this got." "You mean the business?" "I mean all of it. How far my name traveled. How many files, applications, accounts, orders, everything." He didn't argue. He called another officer, Staff Sergeant Langley, who pulled up a secure terminal and started listing off hits tied to my name in federal systems. There were more than I expected. Supplier, contracts. Returns processing centers. Tax statements. even a filed request to register for an import-export certification. All tied to my old mailing address and one shared bank account I didn't recognize. Carson handed me a printout. This is the kind of paper trail that gets people discharged. I looked him dead in the eye. Not me. You're right, he said. Not anymore. Langley turned to me. Would you be willing to go on record now with a formal complaint of identity fraud and criminal impersonation? Write it up. While they drafted it, I scrolled through the supplier information on my phone again. That name, Everbrightware Logistics, kept popping up. I'd seen it once, in the footer of an invoice inside the box. It was tied to 5 other shipments, all sent in the last 6 months. All are using my fake email. Do we know if they're cooperating? I asked. Langley nodded. Federal agents already flagged the shipments. Some of them were found in a seizure batch in Florida. That's where the criminal angle started. High-end fake art, overpriced resales, money laundering through shell platforms. And my name's attached to all of it. Carson answered, not for long. And 4. I signed the statement, stamped and sealed, with 2 witnesses. The sun was dipping low across the parking lot when I walked out. That end-of-day gold light hit my face and didn't feel warm. It felt sterile, like the world was watching me clean house with surgical gloves. Back home, Jason was scrubbing the kitchen floor. No reason. Just the kind of task people take on when they need to feel in control. He looked up and said, "Was it bad?" I shrugged. Worse than I thought. But better than doing nothing. I poured myself a glass of water. Saturday on the couch. I know what they're saying on base, I added. I can feel it. Yeah, Jason said. But they don't know what you know. They will. I leaned back and closed my eyes. Eventually. I opened the envelope from Sid with the same kind of dread you save for medical bills or jury duty. Inside was a summary packet 6 pages thick filled with documentation of everything they'd discovered so far in their investigation. At the top was a cover letter. Preliminary findings in the matter of fraudulent activity associated with Lieutenant Dana Whitlow. I read that line 3 times before I moved on. The pages included screenshots, account histories, timestamps, IP logs, and digital trails. I flipped through slowly, and there it was plain as day. My full name is listed on official vendor contracts, and a digital signature is attached. The problem? That wasn't my signature. I held it up next to my real one, same slant, same looping D, but only someone who'd seen my handwriting in person would fall for it. The loops were too wide, the spacing was off. It looked like someone had copied it by memory, not muscle. Jason walked past me. He paused. Is that your handwriting? Nope, but it's close enough to get me fired. He sat down beside me. I laid the page flat between us. You see the email used to create these? That's the fake one. It's linked to a domain Alyssa bought 6 months ago. BloomDesignsLLC.com. He blinked. She didn't even bother hiding it. Nope. Because she assumed I wouldn't check. A section also made my stomach turn. A PayPal business profile tied to the same email with bank transfers routed through a credit union I'd never used. But my address? My birthday? My phone number? All accurate. She'd built a digital version of me and run a full-scale operation using that clone. And the worst part was it worked. It had worked long enough to generate revenue, collect returns, and get flagged only after the supplier was caught in a broader federal sting. I flipped to the last page. It was a breakdown of who else had access to the accounts. Her name was there, of course. Alyssa Whitlow. Listed as creative director. Also tied to the mobile device that created most of the documents. A Samsung Galaxy registered under our parents' phone plan. I didn't feel rage. I felt insulted. They used their damn family plan to commit fraud in my name. My phone buzzed. Unknown caller. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. Then checked the transcript. You don't have to make this ugly, just say it was a mix-up. Say we were trying to help, nobody needs to get hurt. I played the message again, this time out loud. Jason muttered. She sounds like a scam artist caught red-handed trying to sell dignity. I'm forwarding it to CID. I attached it to the folder and sent it directly to Agent Nichols, the case lead. Within the hour, he replied, "Thanks, Lieutenant Whitlow. We'll include this as corroborating evidence in the fraud report." I stared at the word, corroborating. Because that's what I had become now, a witness in a case involving my name. Not the accused, not the accomplice. The witness. I felt lighter for exactly 3 seconds. Then the base admin office called. "We've received an employment verification request for you through a third-party vendor," the voice on the other end said. "It looks like it's tied to a small business lending platform." "What kind of request?" "Tax status. Role title. Salary range." I closed my eyes. "Can you send me the request form?" "Already did. Should be in your inbox." I opened it while still on the line. The company listed was Sunbranch Financial, flagged as a startup loan provider for minority-owned businesses. And the applicant? Dana Whitlow. But the business listed wasn't the Army. It was Bloom Designs. I froze. "Do you want us to respond?" the admin asked. "No," I said. "Absolutely not." I opened the loan request form. There was my social security number, my address, my birth date, but a different email, again. And this time, a forged W-2 claiming I'd earned $84,000 last year through private business consulting. Jason read over my shoulder. "She tried to take out a loan in your name? More than one. This is the third." I reported it to the CID. They added it to the file. And with that, it was official. My sister hadn't just used my name to sell fake decor. She tried to build an entire fake version of my life. I printed the loan form, the digital signature comparisons, and the supplier invoice history, clipped them all into a thick folder, and walked it straight into the CID office with the same energy you'd have walking into a dentist appointment you scheduled yourself. Agent Nichols didn't even ask me to sit. He just said, "That's the whole thing?" "No," I said. "But it's the whole thing that proves I didn't build it." He opened the folder, took his time flipping through. Halfway in, he pulled out the fake W-2 and exhaled a short, surprised breath through his nose. "She used a military base address as her registered business mailing center," he said. "That's a bold move." "She's not bold," I said. "She's lazy." She knew I'd never check because I never expected her to be this stupid. He nodded once, slid the documents back inside, and then looked at me. "Lieutenant Whitlow, you've been extremely cooperative. And just to be clear, this is no longer internal. We're turning this over to the U.S. Attorney's Office for criminal charges. You'll be asked to testify, but the Army will back you. You're in the clear." In the clear. I didn't even know how that felt anymore. I nodded and said, "Thank you." But I didn't feel anything. Not relief, not closure. Just a kind of numb exhaustion, like someone had wrung out every emotion and left me in the sun to dry. When I returned to my car, the air had turned thick and slow. The kind of humidity you could almost chew. I sat there momentarily, reached into my center console, pulled out a crumpled legal pad, and started writing. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't for the court. It was a declaration for myself, for the record. I, Dana Whitlow, am no longer the family backup plan. I wrote that first line twice. Then I wrote a whole page detailing every instance I had knowingly or out of guilt covered for Alyssa. The times I bailed her out. The credit cards. The silent favors. The signature scans. The holidays were when I smiled through gritted teeth. Then I wrote one more thing. Effective immediately, I do not accept responsibility for the choices of adults who share my last name. I signed it. Folded it. Please put it in my glove box. The next morning, I took 2 hours leave and drove to the county courthouse. Walked straight into the records office and submitted a notarized letter disassociating myself from any non-governmental financial obligations connected to Alyssa Whitlow. It wouldn't do much legally, but it would live on record. And I needed it to exist somewhere other than my head. I also called my bank. Froze every account. Issued new cards. Changed passwords. Not because she still had access, but because I wanted her gone in every traceable way. That night, I opened a blank email draft and wrote my official statement to command. I titled it, Voluntary Declaration of Separation from Personal Associations Impacting Military Integrity. I kept it short, formal, and detached. Due to an ongoing federal investigation involving members of my biological family, I respectfully request that my file reflect my lack of involvement and my cooperation with internal and external authorities. I accept the consequences of silence I previously maintained and have taken the following steps to restore integrity in every part of my professional footprint. I listed all the steps: the CID file, the signatures, the business ties, the courthouse record. I ended with, I do not seek punishment or pity. I seek distance, clean and complete. I hit send. Jason came into the room and leaned on the door frame. Did you just break up with your whole family? I looked at him and nodded. In writing. He raised his tea mug like a toast. To fresh starts. I slept like a corpse that night. 2 days later, Agent Nichols called. We've made the referral. The charges are filed. Your sister's being contacted today. So are your parents. I didn't respond. He added, we'll need you in court when the subpoena hits. Just tell me when and where, I said. I'll show up with facts. He paused. This isn't easy, I know. I'm a soldier, I said. Not a martyr. Oh, that was the breaking point. Not the box. Not the forged emails. Not the base whispers or the lies. It was the choice to stop absorbing the fallout and finally let people feel the heat of their decisions. I wasn't holding the line anymore. I was walking away from the blast zone alive, whole, and done pretending I didn't see the fire. I adjusted my collar and clicked the live stream link the clerk sent me an hour before. The hearing wasn't in person, just a muted courtroom feed with poor lighting and worse audio. I didn't need to see it, but I watched anyway. There she was. Alyssa Whitlow was in a tan cardigan, her hair pulled back like she was going to Sunday school instead of federal court. Sitting between two lawyers who looked deeply bored, eyes flicking toward the judge, waiting their turn to speak. My parents sat a row behind her. My mother wore pearls as if it were a PTA meeting. My father sat like someone who thought silence might be a legal strategy. The charges were read aloud, one after another. Wire fraud, identity theft, tax evasion, misuse of federal contractor identities, conspiracy to commit interstate commerce fraud. Alyssa pleaded guilty. No drama. No breakdown. Just a flat yes, Your Honor, like she was confirming a coffee order. The sentence, 2 years probation, $17,000 in fines, and a 5-year ban on operating any registered business in the state. My parents pleaded guilty, too, to aiding and abetting. Community service. A suspended sentence. Fines. Their names were entered into the public record. And that was it. I closed the tab. No one said my name in apology, no one even mentioned it outside the transcript. But it sat there on the screen in evidence files and federal documents, in permanent ink now. Jason walked in with a mug of coffee and handed it to me wordlessly. Done? He asked. Legally, yeah. I took a sip. It tasted clean. Normal, like something I didn't have to second guess anymore. Later that week, my mother texted me. We'd like to talk. Just us. Not Alyssa. I didn't respond right away. I waited until the weekend and then agreed to meet. Not for reconciliation, just confirmation. They picked a sad little diner near the courthouse. I wore my uniform. Not because I had to, but because it reminded me who I was when I wasn't around them. They were already seated when I walked in. My mother stood up like she was about to hug me. I didn't let her. Let's sit, I said. We did. The waitress poured bad coffee and walked away fast. My dad cleared his throat. We didn't know it would get this serious. I didn't answer. We thought. Maybe it'd get flagged and returned, my mom added. You sent stolen goods in my name to a military base, I said. That's not a misstep. That's federal. She looked at the table like it had betrayed her. You could have just said you made a mistake. Kept it quiet, she whispered. Number. You made the mistake. I reported it. That's what adults do. But Alyssa. No, I cut in. This isn't about Alyssa anymore. This is about both of you signing off on letting your daughter take the hit because she didn't have kids, didn't cry loud enough, didn't matter to the story you preferred. My dad tried to lean forward, like posture might help his argument. You've always been strong. You bounce back. I'm not a rubber band, Dad. I'm a person. Silence. They didn't ask for forgiveness. They didn't apologize. They wanted clearance to stop feeling guilty and return to family brunches without anyone bringing up courtrooms. I wasn't offering that. I stood up, tossed a 10 on the table for the coffee, and straightened my jacket. Enjoy your community service, I said. Maybe you'll finally learn what real responsibility feels like. Then I left. On the drive home, I didn't cry, didn't scream. Just turned the music up and let it be loud enough to drown out any noise that wasn't mine. At home, Jason was fixing something under the sink. I joined him on the kitchen floor, handing him a wrench without saying a word. He didn't ask. He never did. We stayed there, hands dirty, water dripping, the world coming back together, not in triumph, but in quiet pieces that finally belonged to me. The next morning, I changed every emergency contact on file. Base records, my medical folder, the personnel system, every place that once listed my mother or father now had Jason. Nothing dramatic. Just a quiet sweep of boundaries, one field at a time. Then I blocked their numbers. Not out of spite. Out of necessity. I didn't want an apology 3 months from now, masked as guilt or blame or, "You misunderstood our intent." I didn't want a random photo of Alyssa's dog with a "thought you'd like this" caption. I didn't want holiday invitations wrapped in emotional blackmail. I wanted to be absent. So I made it happen. The final cleanup came on a Thursday. I deleted the backup drive with old tax forms and scrubbed every scanned ID and signature Alyssa had access to. And when the system asked, "Are you sure you want to delete these permanently?" I smiled. Yes. Yes, I was sure. That evening, I sat with Jason on the porch, our feet up, watching the Georgia sky do that late summer glow. He was reading. I wasn't. I just sat still for the first time in weeks. He looked over at me. What now? I already did it, I said. No, I mean, what next? I thought for a second, then shrugged. Nothing. He closed his book and leaned back. That sounds amazing. I laughed. It does. And it was. Silence, for once, wasn't a threat. It wasn't the kind that filled up a phone line when someone hung up on you or made a family dinner feel like a courtroom. It was peace, chosen, earned. And the more I leaned into it, the louder my voice got. Not literally. I didn't go on a revenge tour. I didn't write an essay, post a thread, or light anything on fire. I just existed without asking permission anymore. I went to work. I showed up sharp. I trained like I meant it. I briefed my team with calm, clear precision. After a meeting, Roy pulled me aside one afternoon and said, "Your promotion file's being reviewed again. The red flag's been pulled." I said, "Thank you, Bo." He nodded. "You did the hard part. You stood still while the storm broke over everyone else." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. We both knew that standing still had taken more strength than moving. That night, I found a shoebox in the hall closet. I hadn't opened it since the year I joined. Inside were old birthday cards, notes from my mom, and a couple of childish crayon drawings Alyssa made when we were kids. I sat on the floor and looked at each one. Then I lit the fireplace. Not symbolic. Not angry. Just done. As the flame caught the edges of a birthday card that once said, "To our strong girl," I felt lighter. They always thought I was the strong one. So they tested that theory. But strength isn't about who can carry the most. It's who sets it down first when it starts to rot. That was the final truth. And I didn't need anyone else to say it out loud for it to be real. The coffee machine clicked off just as the sun hit the floorboards. I didn't move. Just watched the light crawl across the kitchen tiles where the box used to sit. That spot next to the fruit bowl had once held a small cardboard time bomb with my name on it. Taped shut, sealed with expectation, carrying all the weight of a family that never wanted a daughter, just a container. Now it was gone. So was the fear. I poured my coffee and sat down at the table. Jason came in a few minutes later, half awake, his hair doing its usual post-sleep spiral. He didn't say anything. Just kissed my temple and grabbed the other mug. We sat like that, quietly, as the house held still. My phone buzzed once. A base-wide memo. Promotion review. Captain Dana Whitlow. Status. Active consideration. That was it. No apology, no confetti. Just a line that said the process was back on track, the hold lifted, my file officially reactivated. I put the phone down. No smile, no celebration. Just breathe. Because that was enough. The last few months hadn't just been about clearing my name. It wasn't about punishment or winning. It wasn't even about getting my rank back. It was about air. About finally breathing without having to explain the sound. Later that morning, I cleaned the kitchen. Nothing major, just wiping surfaces, rinsing cups, tossing out the single lonely banana no one would eat. I paused when I reached that exact spot. The box had only sat there for an hour, maybe less. But it had pulled up years of damage, as if it had roots in the floor. A single package, padded with silence and denial, stamped with my identity. And I didn't open it. That choice, more than anything, had rewritten the ending. I picked up a cloth and wiped the counter, slowly and carefully. Not out of ritual. Not because I needed to. Just because it was mine now. That space, that air, that silence. Everything that came after started with that refusal. I didn't let it in. And that one act of standing still, of listening to the voice that said wait instead of prove, had saved me. Jason walked in again, this time with a folder. Got mail, he said, dropping it on the counter. It was nothing big, just forms to sign, a newsletter, something from my CO about the upcoming leadership training rotation. But it was addressed correctly. To me. Just me. I flipped through it and paused at the cover letter. Captain Whitlow, your professionalism and resilience throughout recent investigations have not gone unnoticed. Pending completion of review, you remain a candidate for O5 promotion. It was plain, dry. But to me, it was a monument. Because the truth held up. Not because I screamed it, but because I never stopped living like it was real. The kitchen was filled with light. Not a metaphor, just Georgia being Georgia. Bright, loud, unapologetic sunshine that warmed the floor. I stood there a little longer, holding my coffee like it owed me rent. Jason tapped the counter. You okay? Yeah, I said. I am. He leaned against the doorway. Feels quieter lately. It's not, I told him. I'm just not filling it with their noise anymore. And that was it. No grand speech, no tears, just space. The kind they never gave me. The kind I had to clear out myself. Piece by piece, lie by lie. Until what was left was something solid enough to build on. I looked down at the countertop. They sent me the last lie, I said quietly. And I didn't unwrap it. Jason didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because that's how the story ends. With the box gone. And I'm still here. There's this lie people tell you when you come from a messy family. They say, you're stronger because of it. Pain is a kind of inheritance. Like surviving, it should feel like gratitude. But strength isn't built in chaos. It's built in the decision to walk away from it entirely, finally, and without apology. This wasn't about revenge in the dramatic sense. I didn't burn anything down. I didn't scream. I just refused to carry what wasn't mine anymore. And that, in families like mine, is the loudest revenge. If stories like this hit close to home about family drama, betrayal, and quiet revenge, subscribe to the channel. We share true, powerful family revenge stories that go beyond the surface. Comment if you've ever had to walk away to save yourself. You're not alone, and your story matters.